Imagine your attention span is like a voodoo doll. Every like you get is a pin. Every comment is a pin. Every notification, every Snapchat, TikTok, article about an argument, every one of those is a pin that pulls your attention left and right to where the application wants it to go. This, for me, became somewhat prevalent in sixth grade at Harbor Ridge Middle School, just after a lunch. Me and my friends were talking about our Facebook pages and then decided to add each other on Facebook. And once we added each other, we then circled around to the rest of the lunchroom and added the rest of the lunchroom on Facebook. And once we finished in the lunchroom, we then proceeded out to recess, where we then added everyone at recess to Facebook. In that short moment, I felt something was off. I felt that something had ripped us away from our practical habits of playing Foursquare and into doing something else. And only at the ripe age of 25 have I finally noticed what it's done to us. What I've come to find out about our current technology, as well as our collective attention, is a little bit shocking. And today in this video, I'll take the chance to explore that and try to find some practical solutions for this issue. So with that being said, welcome to Part 1. Attentional Consequences, Shrinking. According to researcher Gloria Mark, she reports that our attention spans prior to switching to another tab on a computer screen has dropped significantly since the early 2000s. When she first started noting her research, she reports that people used to spend about 2.5 minutes on a screen prior to switching to another tab. That has now dropped to about 47 seconds in our generation. The problem is not just screen time, the problem is screen switching and the rate at which we are doing it. Part 2. Multitasking versus task switching. So, a lot of people have a common idea of what multitasking is. However, what if I told you that is a very misconception of what the human brain can actually do? Multitasking is for computers. Human beings are not comparable of actually doing it. And when we multitask, we actually do something called task switching. So let me just break it down real fast. The definition of multitasking comes from the company IBM in 1965. Originally defined in the context of computing systems, they noted that the multitasking is the ability of a computer to apparently process several tasks simultaneously. Now, this has nothing to do with human beings. What human beings typically practice in is something called task switching. Task switching in psychology is noted as how the brain shifts attention between different goals and rule sets. So rather than true multitasking, the brain rapidly toggles between tasks, which creates significant cognitive strain, increase in mistakes made, and depleted mental and attentional resources. I like to think of it as a row of cups, and you have yourself a pitcher of water, and you're trying to fill up each cup. However, you go in a straight line very fast rather than fill up each cup one at a time. This is similar to how your attention span works and how your brain operates when you task switch. Number 3, working memory. How speed steals bandwidth. So, what exactly is our working memory? This is a form of memory that allows a person to temporarily hold a limited amount of information for important and immediate mental use. This is essential for things like learning, problem solving, as well as other mental processes, such as things in regards of executive function. A simple example could be, finding a row of numbers in the city and memorizing that row of numbers and then running back to a lock to unlock a lock with said row of numbers you memorized. According to the study on attention spans and part 4, reading rates declining. And I believe this one itself deserves its own video because it's such an important topic, but I'll skim through it pretty fast. At the University of Valencia, a meta-analysis reviewed 25 studies involving 470,000 participants. The research found that leisure reading on digital devices had a virtually non-existent relationship with comprehension, basically saying that when you read on your phone, you're not remembering or picking up anything that becomes relevant to you. Whereas reading on paper showed a strong positive correlation. And this is where it's become problematic for Gen Z. When you turn to digital reading, you don't gain the context from the text. You end up skimming it and scanning it. Johann, who wrote his book on attention spans, noted this and noted how when you read a paper book, the brain tells you to slow down versus reading on the digital screen that tells you to speed up. Hari explains that when people spend enough time reading on screens, the scanning style can also start to affect how they read paper books too. So even when a person sits down with a physical book, they may still need to rush for the point, skip the description, lose patience while reading, uh, trying to find the main idea quickly, as well as struggling to sit with complexity. So rather than reading a page and trying to sit and understand it, you just try to speed read it. According to a study on attention by Baradin and Baroulet, when the pace of process increases, attention switching then turns on, and working memory span begins to go lower into effect. And that matters because attention is not just about school. Attention is used to plan, create, regulate emotions, and build relationships that we can use to change lives. Part 5, Mental Health Outcomes: Sleep, Anxiety, Depression, and Isolation. So, we saw a sharp increase of major depression issues amongst teens rise sharply after 2010, according to Jonathan Haidt's Anxious Generation. We also saw that teens on average were getting less than 7 hours of sleep. We also saw that teens were spending a lot less time together. And for me, I could see the correlation of that with attention spans pretty clearly. Attention and stress go hand in hand. When you are stressed out on a continuous basis, then you look for outlets to try to relieve said stress, which in turn don't allow you to pay attention on much. And when it comes to these issues of growing up with smartphones on social media, you have people who hang out less, you have people who sleep less, who stay up later than most generations, as well as isolate themselves more, then you're going to have a conundrum of attention deficit people who a tired, anxious, and overstimulated generation is not built for deep focus. So, another thing I wanted to talk about was Johann Hari's venture for a deep digital detox in Provincetown, Pennsylvania. He is a research psychologist as well from the UK who tried to answer the question on how to fix our attention spans in his book Stolen Focus. Hari went to Provincetown to try to change his lifestyle from a speedy digital one to a more human based one. And he found a lot of things occurred during that time. He was able to think deeply, he was able to slow down and walk His mind was able to wander, and he was able to let go of the pull that the internet had. However, when he returned, a bunch of things that he did not foresee started to occur. Before he even landed home, he began to feel seasick, which could have been a sort of sign of what was to come. Uh, when he returned back, he got his phone back from his friend and habitually started flipping through apps such as Twitter, Instagram, Gmail, just to try to read and catch up on everything. And the scary part was he noted to himself, like consciously thought, I don't want this when it came to scrolling on these apps. He then found himself on Twitter a lot more, and he noted that Twitter felt like standing on a termite's nest, where in turn he felt the buzzing, the restlessness, the reactiveness of the apps start to get to him again. Once he started scrolling on Twitter in his hotel room, he noted that 3 hours then disappeared from being on his app. Okay, good morning. I fell asleep. So, what I was saying was after he was done scrolling and he then went off to go eat some food with a friend and he left his phone at home, which is a habit he's been trying to practice. And he then came back home to notifications from Twitter posts he made, uh, emails he got back, and other things that kind of drew him back in, especially comments on Twitter that invoked a lot of negative content in the world. He had the most likes there, which then showed him more social proofs, instigated the fact that this negative portrayal of himself is actually what's becoming more popular versus being authentic, and a bunch of other things that kept him scrolling and scrolling. So, after covering all of these different topics when it comes to our attention span, you can argue there's not a lot of ways forward, and perhaps you might be right. I could say it's crudely optimistic to, find impractical solutions to try to find this, but find a solution. However, I think there are some ways and some solutions to try to fix whatever attentive issues you might have, rather than having to take a trip to Pennsylvania. So, the first one is adding friction to usage. What this means is making it a little harder to get your phone, so it's not always available to you. Like I've practiced the habit of leaving it in another room to go do something else. Like if I'm doing the dishes, then and I want to watch a YouTube video, then I have to stop what I'm doing and go grab it. That small change makes it a lot harder for me to get my phone. Another thing you can try to do is use focus blocks. So 25 minutes of doing a task that you can fully attend to, and then using 5 to 10 minutes of break time for yourself to use your phone. There are also some screen monitoring apps such as Screen Zen, which is something that I use where you can limit the applications that you use throughout a day or have, blocks of time. Me and my girlfriend have talked about ways to use it, and it's, improved her attentive focus as well as mine. Another small practical change you can practice is improving reading endurance. And especially if you don't read a lot, reading endurance and reading can help with linear attention. So, and again, it doesn't have to be a chapter at a time. You can start with 5 pages to 10 pages. You can even start with 2 pages if that's all that you can focus on. However, being consistent in said practice can help improve linear attention. Another thing that you can try to do is practicing boredom. With phones being the cure for boredom for a lot of us, it makes it, and I mean, especially growing up through middle school and high school with said cure for boredom, it makes it hard to escape one's own thoughts and noise in general just because it's always around us. So being able to attend to yourself and being able to think deeply or just randomly all by yourself is also an important thing you can practice. So that is our video on attention spans. If you like the video and you have some questions and thoughts about it, please share them down below and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also, what do you feel like is draining your attention? If you have anything that's pulling you back from something that you really want to do, share those thoughts down below. So, and I appreciate you guys, and once again, thanks for coming to